I'm just going to do a quick update video, but I also wanted to just sit out here and see if I could get you guys to see and hear all of my hummingbirds and teach you just a little bit about hummingbirds and why they are so important, just like bees and pollinator wasps and butterflies and a lot of our other helpful pollinators. So this is kind of a little bit of a random video. I'll give you a quick chicken update, but it's not going to be an educational chicken video. But we're just sitting out here on my porch. It's really hot and it's really humid, but I'm in a bad mood and I'm gonna come sit outside with my plants. So let's talk a little bit about hummingbirds and how you can help. Depending on where you live and what time of year it is, you might have hummingbirds who either stay in your area when it's cooler temperatures, or they might migrate to you as their normal territory gets cooler. You can find hummingbird feeders at the dollar store. You can make your own with little plates. Some of the things you want to be aware of with hummingbirds as you're figuring out if you want to have feeders, how many you want, where you want to put them, all that kind of stuff. It is very, 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 very cheap to help take care of hummingbirds. You don't have to buy anything other than the feeder, which is a one-time purchase, right? You don't have to buy anything special. You can make your own food, and I'll give you my recipe. I mean, it's like super simple. But a few things to know. They drink all day and all night on sugar water, and that's essentially their entire diet. So they need to make frequent stops because obviously they burn that off ridiculously fast. They will build nests that are only about the size of a thimble, certainly smaller than a chicken egg. And the babies are completely dependent on the parents, obviously, not only while they're still developing in the egg, but for a couple of weeks after they're born. So it's important that we take care of the hummingbirds, not just for the adults, but for the babies. Because, of course, if something happens to the mom who's taking care of the newborns, then the babies are going to die, either from starvation or from exposure. So hummingbird feeders, I actually got most of mine, the ones that I like best, the one that I'm showing you, it's on the right now, from the dollar store. They can be glass or they can be plastic. What you're looking for is something that is bright colored. Red and yellow are the spectrums that they can see the best. The funny little things that you see on top of my hummingbird feeder, that thing, that's one style, and I'll talk about it in a second. And then I have two hummer feeders right here. They have the little cups up above them. Those are called ant guards. And because they're essentially drinking sugar water, you will get other animals that are interested in the feeders also. So what essentially you're doing is you suspend the feeder, right? It's hanging from something. So ants feel like, okay, well, I'm just going to crawl down the hook and then I can get into the hummingbird food. And they will, they'll drown in it. They'll consume some of it, of course, but it's just a big mess. And hummingbirds will often avoid feeders that are covered in ants or who have a lot of bees, or if they see a praying mantis on it that's trying to grab them, or whatever the case may be. So those little ant guards are basically just little cups that you fill with water. And there's no way, if you're thinking, coming from the top and trying to get down, there's no way that ants can successfully make it through the water back out and around the edge. And I hear my little hummers, they're all over the place. I've got some big stupid bugs flying around and stuff too. I don't know what that bug was doing. So there's that kind of ant guard, and it's just a hook and a cup, and you can make your own version, and then you just fill it with water. The only thing you got to make sure is, of course, if all the water evaporates, it's not doing its job, because the ants will just crawl through it and continue to descend. So you got to keep it full. This ant guard I found for a couple of dollars on Amazon, and the ants, if you're thinking, walking along the outside, the ants come, they have to go up in that thing to continue, and apparently there's an ant repellent. It's a Hummingbird Safe. Basically, it's just a smell that ants don't like, but it's an ant deterrent, and as you can see, my feeder is completely clean. There's no ants on it, there's no ants in it, there's no bees or anything else. It's completely clean. But, you don't have to go buy expensive hummingbird feeders. There are ones that are really, really long, so it has like a ton of different feeders on it. And there are beautiful ones that are made out of glass. But the recipe that you'll use for hummingbird food, and you can buy the kind that, that is the pre-made, and you mix it with water, and it has the red dye in it and all of that stuff. But if your feeder has red on it, or red and yellow, or, whatever, you don't need to buy the hummingbird food. You just need normal sugar, granulated sugar, and water. And your ratio is 1 to 4 sugar to water. So if you boil, chickens. If you boil 4 cups of water, you're going to put 1 cup of sugar in. And you just let it melt, and then you let it cool, and then you add it. I usually make a really big batch, like a pot full, and I fill up my feeders and clean my feeders, and then the rest of the food that, you know, I didn't need to put in here, as you can see, because it's so hot, it'll start to like mildew and get algae and stuff in it. So I clean my feeders. I wash them out and scrub them out once a week with like a tiny little skinny brush. The extra food that I made, I just bottle it up and put it in the fridge, and it'll last for a really long time in the fridge. And that way you can quickly just warm it up. You do need to clean your feeders about once a week because the sugar water will go bad. And then of course you do have the occasional, you know, bug that gets in there, or if you see like black mold and stuff on the little flowers, the little drinkers, you want to make sure that that's clean. But otherwise it's really low maintenance. And we're in South Texas, so the hummingbirds will be going on their annual migration through here. The other thing to be aware of where you're going to put the feeders. It doesn't really matter if you put them in the shade or in the sun. You know, your food might last a little bit longer if it's in the shade, but that's not really that big of a deal. You know, over time, your hummingbirds will learn, hey, this is where the feeders are. Like, I know they know my house. And so it's good to just try to keep them in the same places. But one thing I was going to tell you is hummingbirds are ridiculously territorial. They are like little, I won't say the word, but they're not nice to each other. And so you'll hear them zooming and like peeping at each other and screaming at each other as they are keeping track of their feeder. They have a really tiny little peeping voice, and then you'll hear them buzzing around. And then you can see them. Oh, there's one right up there. So I'm going to be quiet and see if I can get him to come over here. Sitting up in my crepe myrtle. I can see him. He's right in the top of the trees that you can see. He's just hanging out. Hoping he's going to come down here if I'm really still and quiet. I sit out here sometimes, and I've gotten them used to me, so they will still come and drink when I'm sitting out here. Just because over time, they've just gotten familiar and comfortable with our house. The tree that's not the one that's on your right that's closest to my house, but the one that's in the center of the shot farther back is a loquat tree. I know I have at least one hummingbird nest in that tree. So come on, my friend. He's still sitting there. But also, you want to be very wary that you try to keep the feeders in an area where cats cannot sit there and perch. Because of the way hummingbirds are as compared to a lot of birds, particularly in North America, hummingbirds do not have as much of a predator protection instinct. Like, they don't think as much about like, hey, this area, you know, might be dangerous. It might be easy for somebody to grab me, you know, because they don't have calls that help each other, that help protect each other from enemies. You know, they don't really stay in a big, huge flock or an extended family group. So a lot of those instincts that other birds have. So, you know, you need to be really careful about if you let your cats out. You need to be, you know, just like a lot of the stuff we talk about for chickens. You can hang up CDs or old DVDs or other things that are shiny that will deter big predatory birds who might come and grab hummingbirds. Of course, keep your hummingbird feeders really clean. Even some bees and wasps, and like I said, praying mantis will sit around hummingbird feeders waiting to catch a hummingbird. So, and there are all different kinds of species, and they are absolutely adorable and wonderful. There are also little hand feeders that you can get that suction cup to the window, but they're small enough that you can hold it in your hand. They're only about the size of a 50-cent piece, so only a couple of inches across. But they're small enough that over time, you know, again, if you keep your feeders full on a regular basis and your hummingbirds come to rely on you because you're reliable and you keep your feeders out at all times, then, you know, I'm hoping maybe by next season I'll be able to come out here and hold a feeder in my hand, and they'll come perch on my hand and drink. And they are the cutest little things, except when they're fighting with each other. As far as everything with my chickens, we're doing well. We have not had much of an egg slowdown, even though everybody's molting, just because I'm not letting them get hot. They have their fan on, they have their mister, they get ice water, they're getting a lot of extra protein treats, probably about every other day. So their molt, nobody's gotten a really rough molt this year. Like, I can tell, you know, that they're molting because they look a little rough around the edges, but it's not bad. I'm waiting for that hummingbird to come down. I don't know if you can see him. He's in the tree, but he's right about there. I know my finger's really blurry. I'm not good at that. Well, you can see him moving around a little bit. I'm trying to get him right in the center of the shot. He's that dark spot right there on those leaves. Come down here, dude. But just some information for hummingbirds. You know, even if you're not big on a lot of other... Oh, I don't know if you heard that little peeping sound, but that was a hummingbird that just came to this feeder over here. I'm trying to get one in the shot. I may have to go out where the chickens are. Let's go hang out with the girls. And then we'll look back up this way. Oh, yeah, but I hear more over there in the bald cypress. And if they see me, they just go zzz, and they fly over to one of these little branches here, and then they just sit and wait. Wait for me to move. And then I go inside every week to, you know, clean the feeders out and replace the food. And I see them coming up. I'm looking around like, lady, where the hell is the feeder? Like, come on, man. I'm like, what do you mean you're closed? But I hope that, you know, if you're not able to keep bees, or there's not a lot of other stuff that maybe you don't have a big yard, you know, to plant a whole bunch of pollinator-friendly plants to help the bees and to help the populations of those animals that we need, because we are so screwed if we lose our pollinators. I know in China, they already have to hand pollinate, you know, hundreds of acres of crops. I mean, you have to hand pollinate every flower, sometimes multiple times. Let's see if I can get a customer now. But every time I've seen my hummingbirds out here lately, I've thought, you know what, like I need to get a video for everybody. And those morning glory vines that are kind of going crazy right there, they sit and perch on those little vines and just sit and wait and take turns, and they chase each other away. What? No, this video is not about you. Nope, sorry. Nope. You're not doing anything entertaining. You're just a chicken. So, just some quick little facts about hummingbirds, maybe encouraging you. I do have glass feeders. I am going to add some more feeders that are here farther out. You can put your feeders pretty close to the windows. And again, you know, over time, you may not see anybody for the first couple of days, but, you know, just do some... Oh, there they go, there they go, there they go. I hope you guys can hear them and see them. I'll zoom in a little bit. There they are. You see them fluttering right there? What are you looking at, dude? There they are. Oh, and there's another one. I hear him right there. They were just waiting for me to move. Ooh, and they chase each other around. Ooh, they're mean. Very, very territorial. So get more feeders, spread them around, you know, start teaching your birds like, hey, this is here and this is going to be here forever, so don't worry. You can keep the feeders up all year long. I honestly am going to keep them up until I am confident. I have not seen a hummer in quite a few days as they continue to migrate farther south this time of year. Yeah, they are. I hope you can hear their little peeps from here. It's so sweet. And see, that's my dollar store feeder. And actually, that ant guard is from the dollar store too. There he goes. But I hear them flying all around me and like peeping at each other, so I know they're there. But just a little video about hummingbirds. Let me know, do you have hummingbird feeders? What do you do to help the pollinators in your area? It's just something I'm really passionate about, because we have to do something, guys. And this is a cheap, easy thing that you can do. I'm back. Same day, just in the afternoon. The hummingbirds are going crazy, so I'm hoping I can show you. I've just been doing yard work out here.